Hi there, Ford owners. Today in your 2012 Ford F-150, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install BlueLox's base plate. And this is what our base plate looks like when it's installed. We've currently got it in the drive position where you'd be going down the road, not hooking up. And here we've got our attachment points for our base plate here. This is where our tow bar would attach to the tab that goes in here. And here's our location for our safety cable to attach to as well. We've got one like that on each side. Your tow bar will attach to the tabs here. This is going to hook up to any BlueLox tow bar. We do have adapters available here at etrailer if you've got a different manufacturer's tow bar, so that way it'll work with this base plate. These simply just push into place and then just give it a twist until it locks in, and now you've got your attachment point there. You can see how this sticks out in the front, so when you're not flat towing, you likely do want to remove these so that way you don't have everything sticking out in the front. Somebody walks by in the front, they can easily hit their shin on these, and they hurt pretty bad. And it also looks a lot cleaner when you're driving around town if you pull those out. And included with your base plate, you'll also get a bracket for mounting up your wiring. It's nice that they include that because sometimes it can be difficult to find a place to put your wiring. When you are ready to hook up your tow bar, remove the pin. You'll then pay attention to the arrow indicating which side goes up. Line up your tabs together, and then you can slide the pin through both to attach it. And then using the other pin, lock it in place. We'll do the same thing to each of our arms. Then we can hook up our safety cables. When doing so, you want to make sure you cross these. So I just hooked this one to the base plate on the driver's side. That means I'm going to hook the other end of my safety cable to the passenger side of my hitch. We'll then do the same thing with the other cable, crossing it to the opposite side. And the reason we're doing this, to cross them, is in the event that we have a catastrophic disconnect, the cross cables will act as a cradle, because as the two pull taut, it'll keep our tow bar and accessories here from digging down into the pavement. And now with the rest of our flat tow components hooked up, this is typically for braking system and wiring, as well as your breakaway cable. We're now ready to place our truck into flat tow mode and then hit the road. There's 5 main components you'll need when flat towing your F-150 behind your motorhome. You'll need your tow bar, which is the connection between your motorhome and your vehicle. You'll need your safety cables, which are a supplemental connection in addition to the tow bar. You'll also need your base plate, which is the connection point on your vehicle that you'll attach your tow bar and safety cables to. You'll need diode wiring or other sort of wiring, such as magnetic lights, to take all the signals from your motorhome and transfer those signals to the back of your vehicle so people behind you know your intentions when going down the road. And lastly, you'll need a supplemental braking system, which will help your vehicle come to a complete stop when you apply the brakes in your motorhome. We'll begin our installation at the front of the vehicle under the hood by removing bolts here at the front, and it's going to be these 3 right here. The smaller ones are an 8mm and the larger one here in the center is a 10mm. There's also a cable right here. It's just kind of clipped in there, just pull it out of there. It may have also been clipped into another spot. Our customers is a little bit of an older vehicle here, so this clip was just hanging down, but there's a good chance that that was poked into a spot here as well, and you might need to use a pair of pliers or a trim panel tool to pop that clip out, because we need that to be free. We'll then remove our center bolt here with a 10mm socket. And then both the side ones there with our 8mm socket. And the latch at the center here, you're going to push towards the driver's side and then kind of lift up. You see it's got a little slot there, so it hooks on here and there. So you got to kind of like slide it one way, lift up, slide it back to get it to slide out of the little opening there. Once you've got that off, we're just going to set this right up here on top, out of the way. Next, we're going to be underneath the vehicle and behind our tow hooks on each side. If you kind of wrap around the bottom here, there's a bolt just on the back with a nut. We're going to remove the nut from it using a 15mm socket. We're going to remove the one on the other side as well. With both of those bolts removed, we can slide the shield down in the front. We'll just set that aside. And now that that shield's out of the way, we can get up in here to see the backside of our bumper. On the frame on each side, you're going to have a stud on each side of the frame, and there's one nut on each side of the frame that we're going to need to remove. So you'll see that there's one up here at the top corner, and there's one in the opposite bottom corner. We're going to remove the two on this side using a 21mm socket, and then we'll remove the two over on the other side. What I like to do with these is after I get one off, I like to thread one on just about a turn on each side, and that way it's on there just so it can't fall off while I'm taking the hardware loose. We can easily just take that last nut off by hand once we've got all the rest of the hardware loose. So got it off there, about a turn, and we're just going to remove the rest now. Now that we've got all of our bolts loose, we can see that the bumper's loose here. It's only being held on by those two nuts that we thread on. We need to disconnect any electrical connectors that we have on the back side here, and this is going to vary depending on the options you have. Our customer only has fog lights here, so these are the only connectors we need to disconnect, but you may also have other components depending on your options, so just check to see if you've got anything else down here. We're going to disconnect these on each side, and then we'll take our bumper off. So now we're back up top. You can reach down and just remove those nuts from up here, the ones that we had just loosely threaded on, and then we're going to grab our bumper beam and we're going to slide it off and set it aside where it won't get damaged. You may need an extra set of hands when doing this. It is a fairly heavy bumper, so just keep that in mind. We'll now need to remove our tow hooks. Using your 15mm socket, take out the two bolts below. We're going to remove both bolts and our tow hook. The tow hook does have a slot on it, so you can take it out before taking out the second bolt if you want to. We are going to reuse this hardware, so go ahead and save this. We'll now take our base plates and put them in position. They're going to replace our tow hooks. The tow hooks aren't going back on. It's going to sit like this. This bracket here where it L's up is going to sit on the outside of the frame with the safety cable towards the center. The holes on top here that are slotted are going to line up with the factory weld nuts. They are a little weld plate here, so you might have to line that back up after you've removed the tow hook. We're just going to use that factory hardware, slide up through the bottom, up through one of the slotted holes. And we're just going to line this up and then thread it into that factory nut plate. And the same on the other side as well. Now, if you didn't have any tow hooks, you're not going to have any hardware here, but hardware does come included with your kit, so you use the bolts, lock washers, flat washers, and nuts that come included if you don't have that factory hardware or tow hooks. And then on all the hardware that comes in the kit, we're going to be using red Loctite with. I'm just going to put some of that on the bolt. We also slid a lock washer on here. These are going to slide through the frame and your base plate into the frame. Then we're going to use the nut plates, or they're more like handle nuts. Slide them in and then just thread the hardware into that. We're going to repeat that for the other hole on this side and then both the holes over on the other side. Once you've got them all started, we can go back and tighten them all down using a 19mm socket. We can then go back and torque all of our hardware to the specifications found in our instructions. Now we can remove the excess from our handle nuts. I find the easiest way to do this is to use a pair of wire cutters or side cutters. Just grab the wire, and then if you just bend it up and down while giving a little bit of pressure squeezing, you'll cut right through it like butter. Now that all the hardware is torqued and tightened to the specifications outlined in your instructions, we just need to feed our supplemental cables in place. You can see I've got this one already in place. We're just wrapping our cable around the frame here, so that way in the event of a catastrophic disconnect, our cable will grab the frame and keep everything together. You'll have a quick link that comes in your kit. Just hook this into the opening on the bottom of your base plate, and then we can just take our cables, slide it onto the quick link, and then just tighten down the quick link. And we'll do this on both sides. Once you have your cables in place, you can reinstall your bumper in reverse order of how you removed it. Now, when you're doing a flat toe setup though, you normally have to put on more parts than just your base plate. You've got your diode wiring, you've got a supplemental braking system, potentially other accessories like a charge line. So all those things are going to be easier to install while we've got our bumper off. So I'm going to go ahead and install the rest of the components. That is going to complete our flat toe setup, and I highly recommend you do so. This bracket comes included with your base plate, and this is where you can mount your 6-pole wiring to. We're going to be mounting that on our bumper before we reinstall it. It's easier to do it this way. So this is an opening that you have right here on your bumper. And this bolt here actually came included with our braking system, but you can provide your own hardware if you're using a different braking system. We're using SMI's Air Force One, and you can see I've got one of the bolts in there already holding this one on. So we'll reuse this existing square hole here. We'll take our hardware, we're going to slide it through. We'll slide it through there. The fender washer here came with the bracket from the braking system because you're going to need a large washer on it since it's got that big square opening. And we'll follow that up with a nut. We're using an nylon locking nut. If you use a regular nut, I'd recommend also adding a lock washer to it. And then we'll tighten this down with the size appropriate for your hardware. Ours is going to be an 11 millimeter. And we're just going to get it run up first, then we'll straighten it out. So we got it pretty well run up, but still where we could maneuver it here. We're then going to slide it around here until we get it to where it's pretty well even with our other bracket. It's not going to be perfectly straight due to the curvature of the bumper, but it should be pretty close. So we're just going to slide these as far up until we've got some meat right here on our other hole. And then we're going to use a self-tapping screw to attach it. And you can see how these are slotted here. Since we got the bracket pushed over this way with the bolt on this edge of the slot, we're going to put this one on the same edge of the slot so that way we can adjust it back and forth if we need to and kind of tweak it to get the best look at the front.
The self-tapping come with the...
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
You can get self-tapping screws at your local hardware store. And since it is so tight in this area, it might help to make a small pilot hole when getting that screw in there. Now that we've got this bracket in place, we can go ahead and reinstall our bumper in reverse order of how we removed it. And that completes our installation of Blue Ox's base plate on our 2012 Ford F-150.